A basic select statement allows us to return all of the records in a table, filtering it so we only see the columns of interest to us. However, for tables of any significant size, looking at every record can be both resource and time intensive. Instead, we usually want to limit our selection so that we only see a subset of the records based on various criteria. SQL has a variety of ways that you can filter or limit the amount of data returned. We will specifically look at the limit and where clauses. When building and running manual queries, we often want to experiment with our SQL first. If we return all of the data for every experiment, this could be very slow. However, by applying a limit to our query, we can restrict the number of rows returned. This allows us to get a small sample of the data to ensure our query is behaving as we expect. Then, once we're confident in our code, we can remove the limit and execute the full query. However, limit isn't just for manual queries. Sometimes our application requires only a limited number of the total records available. We can use limit, potentially combined with other logic, to restrict how many records are returned. A where clause is used when we want to limit our select statement based on predefined criteria. It consists of the keyword where and a predicate. The predicate is a set of conditions that are run against each record. It will always evaluate to true or false. If it resolves to true, the record is included in the results. If it resolves to false, the record is omitted. In this example, our predicate is checking that the user's last name is equal to Smith. Predicates make use of comparison operators. They might compare the values of two columns in a record, or the value of a single column against a constant. There are a variety of operators that can be used. The standard operators, such as greater than, less than, and equals, are available and can be applied to a variety of data types. There are also operators for specific data types. The like operator can be used to search strings for specific patterns. The in operator can be used to compare against a set of values. Each where clause contains a predicate. However, logical operators can be used to chain together multiple predicates and build more complex queries. These logical operators are the standard operations you see for Boolean types in most programming languages, including and, or, and not. They allow the creation of more complex predicates that can check a variety of conditions on every record. When running filters against records, it's important to consider the performance implications of your query. Limiting a query to 10 rows will often execute very quickly. However, if the query has to run through the entire dataset before it finds the necessary 10 rows, it can still be very slow. Meanwhile, a filter that doesn't use the primary key may also need to run against the entire dataset. If we want to find every user with the last name of Smith, we need to look at every record. That can be a very time and resource intensive query, and executing it may impact the performance of other database operations. The performance of these queries can often be improved by adding an index on the fields being compared. If we were to add an index to the last name field, then this query would execute more efficiently. We'll discuss indexes in more detail later in the course.